Okay, in this week's video we're going to be doing more stuff to the Trans Am. I got the hood out here and I'm going to use chemical stripper to get this paint off. And over here on the deck lid and the roof, I'm going to use these paint stripper pads, because I don't want to get paint remover dripping down on everything else I already got primered. So this thing takes it off pretty quick, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the chemical on that and get it working, and while we're waiting on that, we're gonna go ahead and start stripping on this. Okay, we got her pretty well stripped down to bare metal, and in the process I found a hole. I guess we're gonna have to fix that, and it just so happens that I had another F-body trunk lid, and I cut out a little piece, and I think that's gonna fix it up pretty good. But before I do that, I want to get the chemical stripper working on the other half of this hood so we can get it stripped down. And the other side took it down to, well, almost down to bare metal. I think we can just run the DA over that primer and sand it off. So we're going to get this soaked down with the stripper and let that start working while we fix a hole in the deck lid. Okay, we got our hood wiped down with acetone. It's still a little bit sticky, so we're gonna let that sun dry. Well, we go over here and work on patching this hole. So, we're gonna get busy with that. Okay, I got the inside primered, and I got my little patch fitting pretty good, and I'm gonna see if I can weld this up without warping the deck lid. So we're going to be really patient and do it very slowly. Okay, well, my little patch is cooling just so I don't get impatient and warp it. I've got all the stripper wiped down with acetone on this hood, and it left the primer. It took all the decal off, most of it, but I want to see if the DA is going to take this primer off or if we need to use more stripper on it. So that's something to keep me busy while I'm waiting for my patch to cool. Okay, that is some really tough primer. The DA just didn't really want to take it off. I even tried some 36 grit and it barely takes it off. So I think I'm going to try some more of the paint stripper on it, see if it'll take off that primer. And there seems to be speckles of rust underneath of it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get some Evapo Rust and just paint it all over the whole thing, see if we can get all of that little rust speckles out of it, and that'll probably go a lot faster than trying to use the DA and sanders, because that stuff is really tough. Alright, well, I'm waiting for more paint stripper for the hood. I think I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't finish welding up my little patch here, get it smoothed out, that way I can get some primer on this deck lid. Okay, we got it all smoothed out, and there's just little tiny low spots here, but a little bit of spot putty will fill that in, but I guess it don't really matter because the spoiler is gonna cover all that up anyways. But we can get that little spot fixed, get some primer on here, and then maybe we can get that hood stripped down. Okay, it's been a couple of days since I did any video, I had a couple of disasters. First of all, my bumper, the primer that I put on there was sandable primer, and it cracked all to pieces. So I sanded it out, and I used primer sealer, and you can flex it back and forth and no cracks at all. So that turned out pretty good. My second disaster was I tried to use the stripper on this hood, and the primer was just not coming off. I had to literally grind it off, and you can see all the grind marks. I had to use 36 grit. And so I got it all sanded down. There was even rust underneath the primer. I got it down to bare metal. I used rust treatment and primer sealer, and now I've got sandable primer on it, and I'm getting all the little nick marks out of it gradually. Running the DA over it. I'm gonna get this all the way down. If I show some bare metal, that's okay. I'll throw on some more primer and just keep filling it. Had a little dip over here. Put a little thin layer of the glazing compound in there. So I gotta fix a few little spots, and then I'm gonna run the block sander over it with some guide coat and see if we can't get this straightened out. So we're just gonna have to keep working at this until we get it, you know, looking decent. Okay, I'm getting down to all the scratch marks getting filled in, but we're gonna need another layer of primer on here because I'm getting through to the metal in some areas. So I'm gonna spray another coat on there, maybe 2 or 3, and see if we can't get all these scratch marks filled in. Okay, I came in with a really tight pattern because it's windy out here, and just put on a really thick layer. And so I'm gonna have to let this cure for the rest of the day out here in the sun. I think it'll harden up really good. All right, it's the next day and all my primer is cured up. I put a lot of hardener in it, and I knew I had a low spot here where I put in a little bit of the filler and sprayed it down with the guide coat, and sure enough, you know, you can see where that's low, and I can feel a low spot over here. So yep, it really showed up there with the guide coat. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in some of the spot putty and glazing compound, whatever you call it, see if we can't get this little dip took out and this one over here. Okay, I got my glazing compound all knocked down, and I put a little etching primer on there to keep it from flash rusting because I'm all out of primer. So while I'm waiting on getting some more primer, I'm just going to do a couple other little odds and ends. Now I got my hood hinges all de-rusted in the dip and got them primered up. But I noticed that this one rivet right here looks like it's kind of corroded away and about ready to pop out. So I'm gonna put a little bit of weld in there to try to save that, and we're gonna see how it's gonna work. Okay, I got it bolted to the car, and I just wanted to test the function of it and make sure I didn't weld it static. I want to make sure it still pivots. So here we go. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. It still moves. This is a good thing. All right. Yeah, and it doesn't appear to be trying to pop out. So I think we got it fixed. Okay, like I was saying, this front bumper assembly doesn't fit the contour of the fender. So I slathered on some short strand fiberglass, and I'm gonna get this bumper cover bolted up on and then use the fender as a guide and try to get it to the same contour. Did that same thing over here, put it on really thick, so I got a lot of material to work with. So we're gonna try to get this sanded down and get it to where it should fit. Okay, I got all this fiberglass all knocked down, smoothed out real nice, and I put some glazing compound to fill in all the little pits that fiberglass leaves, and then went to a finer grit and smoothed it down. But right now we got it to where you don't have that big huge gap. It's filled in where it was kind of concave there. So I'm gonna get some etching primer on here to keep that fender from flash rusting, and I think we're looking really good on this front bumper. Okay, now that I got my front and my rear bumpers fitting really good, I'm gonna go ahead and take everything back apart on the front end, get in here and clean up the firewall area, get some primer sealer or some sort of primer on there. I'm gonna get up inside here and clean up all this insulation junk and get it primered. And I'm gonna come back here and cut this out where somebody has really hacked up the package tray area and just fill it in with a piece of sheet metal, get some strength back into it. So we're gonna go ahead and get going on that. Okay, I got my firewall and my dash all pretty much stripped down to bare metal, and I used the big stripper pads, 4-inch, and the little stripper pads on a little air grinder, and got it stripped down pretty good. And I used some paint stripper on the label plate, got it all cleaned up. I'll screw it back down after I paint the area where it goes. And I'm gonna go ahead and get it all wiped down and spray it down with etching primer. And then I'm gonna use rattle cans black. And the reason why is because if I gotta touch it up, then it'll match. You know, it's all under the hood, it's not gonna be on the outer body. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cleaning this firewall down and just spray the whole thing down with etching primer all the way around. So here we go with that. Okay, well, I'm waiting for my primer to dry up. I'm gonna go ahead and get started on this package tray patch. I cut a piece out of an old cabinet drawer. It's got a few perforations in it, but I guess that don't really matter with all the holes in this package tray. It's a good piece of 18 gauge. And I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting out all this hacked up part, see if I can fit it down in there, and maybe kind of hammer down here to match these beads, and see if we can't get this package tray a little more sturdy, because it's just oil canning like crazy, but it's just flimsy. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if we can't get this patched up. Okay, I put a couple tacks on either side so I could go ahead and do my cut here, and I got that tacked in. So now I need to cut through my tack all the way up here, cut this way a little bit, and I can pull down the old metal on the inside and then run my tacks here. Then I can do my cut going this way. So that's basically how we're doing it here. Running out of wheel. Hey, got some more wheel. Okay, I think that's gonna work. Alright, I took this little dolly, kind of held it in between here and hammered down right here and right here. There's a little bit of gap to fill in, but I think that shouldn't be a problem. Just weld that up. I think I can get down in there with a little belt sander and smooth it out. I think that's going to look really good. So, it's getting kind of late tonight, so I think I'll come in tomorrow and finish up on this patch. Got everything pretty much welded up all the way around, and this is the piece that I pulled out from underneath as I was doing the cut and butt. Kept peeling it back and got it all the way out of there. So we got it pretty well patched up. I took the little belt sander, and after I hammered down and welded in between these little slots or beads, whatever you call them, got them all smoothed out, kind of made it look like, you know, the end there. But pretty solid now. So when I come in tomorrow, I think I'll clean all this up, get some paint on here, and then I'll move back up to the front and start painting the firewall. Okay, before I go ahead and paint this firewall, I'm gonna go ahead and seam seal where the factory original stuff was. It was all cracked and flaking off, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some fresh seam sealer in all these seams down here and get it sealed up and let that cure so we can just paint over the seam sealer and everything. Got my firewall pretty well painted up. All the areas behind the fender here is well preserved, so I think I can go ahead and get my fenders on permanently and fit it to the hood and start doing the body work. So that's gonna be about it for this video, and we appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see you around next time.